So very quickly, this is a webinar presented by HDK. We are a digital agency that provides website design and marketing services to arts and cultural organisations like yourselves, and in clients including Alexandra Palace, English National Ballet, Museum of the Home, Arts Council England's All In. So we're really excited to kind of continue to grow this community of like-minded organisations. So your attendance is highly valued. Today we are going to be talking about email marketing for the arts and a little bit of housekeeping. We've got captions available if they're needed. They should be along the bottom bar. And we're also recording today's session so that if you want to watch anything back, you can. In terms of privacy, none of your information will be visible anywhere. Anything that you share in the chat is also completely private to everybody that is here today. So, to let you know how today's session is going to run, we're going to start with some introductions. We've got an amazing panel of speakers joining us today to share their insights from across the sector. We're going to have a discussion guided around 3 key questions. We'll then open up to your questions. We'll have a dedicated section for these at the end, but please do feel free to leave any questions throughout in the chat. If we feel that something is particularly pertinent to what we're discussing in the moment, we'll feed that through. Otherwise, we will, or Bella will, save it for later, and we'll try and answer as many questions as we can so that you can get the most out of today's session. Okay, fabulous. So with that in mind, I think we'll start with some introductions. So I'll go first. I'm Phoebe. I am HDK's Partnerships and Events Manager. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a white woman with blonde hair. Today it's up. I've got some wavy bits hanging down and I'm wearing a grey cardigan and some pink lipstick. My kind of relationship to email marketing is I manage HTK's webinar mailing list. So if you've ever received, I'm sure you're here today, you will have received multiple emails from us about upcoming webinars. That's my job, or part of my job. So yeah, I'm really kind of excited to hear the insights that our panelists have to share today. Also from HTK today, I'm joined by Bella.
Hi everyone, I'm Bella. My pronouns are she, her. I'm part of the digital marketing team here at HDK, and I'm a white woman with wavy, I think it's shoulder length now, dark brown hair. And my I'm here to support Phoebe as she hosts today's session, and I'll be reading through your comments and making sure to save some questions for the Q&A and answering any that I can along the way. And my relationship with email marketing, or my background with it, is I've worked in-house as a marketing manager running mailing lists. I was always really interested in how you can best target and tailor your audience groups, and really make sure your content is engaging your audiences. I think email is a really interesting topic for directly communicating with an audience. And of course, at HDK, we do a lot of that work with our clients as well. So I'm really excited to hear everyone's perspectives from the panel today.
Thank you, Bella. And now I'm going to hand over to our panelists to introduce themselves, and I'm going to do it purely based on who I can see first. Jacqueline, I'll hand over to you.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Ewers. My pronouns are she, her. I'm from the Digital Culture Network. And if you haven't come across that already, we are part of Arts Council England, providing free support to the creative and cultural sector in England. Today, I'm wearing a blue tank top. I needed to just check what it was, and a white long sleeve t-shirt. I've got my hair up. I'm a white woman, brown hair, and I think that's probably about enough, isn't it, for self-describing. I'll pass on to Jessica.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Harvey-Oliemi and I'm the customer. I look after emails over at Shakespeare's Globe. I'm a mixed race woman with dark curly hair. I'm wearing a khaki shirt today and I've got a gold necklace on, which has got my star sign Aries in case anyone wanted to know. I've been at the Globe just shy of 3 years. I originally came into marketing via a completely different sector. I worked for financial education, and when I moved across to the Globe, I first looked after the website and I moved across to customer journey management and email marketing about a year ago. So I'm really excited to kind of get into the insights today and sort of hear from the other panelists as well. And I'll pass across to Natalie.
Hi, I'm Nat. I'm a senior marketing officer from Casting Doncaster. My pronouns are she, her. I am a white woman with sort of blondish brown, middle-length hair, and I'm wearing a long-sleeved green dress. So at Cast, there's myself and another senior marketing officer, and then we have a marketing assistant. And between the three of us, we look after, I think we've got something like about 110 sort of campaigns going on at the minute. And we do everything for that campaign. So that includes email and sort of all the other sort of aspects of the campaign. We sort of run and manage everything, but I'd say that email marketing is probably one of our main tools for that.
Fab. Thank you so much. Wonderful. I've also spotted that a couple of people have raised their hands. If you do have any questions, please just drop them in the chat. If they're technical questions, hopefully it's something that Bella can help with. Otherwise, as I said, we'll kind of answer questions as and when we can during the discussion. So with that, I think we will get started with our first question. And I'm going to start with Jessica. What purpose does email serve for the Globe? And can you share an overview of your current strategy and how you kind of got there, basically?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I guess for emails, they're like a really big driver for us. So they kind of really about like building relationships with all of our different audiences and really building that experience as well. And trying to like push forward for retention. There's so much that we offer here at the Globe, everything from our theatre programmes to our educational work. We've got a research centre, we've got a library and archive. So there's so much going on. If you look at our website, there's lots listed there. So for us, emails like really help drive awareness for all of those different pieces of work. So no matter which stream you kind of came to visit us at the Globe, just as a good way and a good tool that we can kind of talk to you about all the different things that we offer as well. And of course, it's a real big sort of sales driver for our existing audience as well. Generally, for all of the things that we sell, we kind of like fluctuate between either sort of directly through the website will be the biggest driver or our social media channels or emails, depending on which one it is. But definitely for our existing audiences, email is like kind of the biggest push. So our current strategy at the moment, I'm really focused on retention, like really personalizing those journeys and continuing to build those relationships. So at the Globe, like we're kind of in a bit of a unique situation in that, which is a bit of a challenge and an opportunity. But some people will kind of see us as a tourist venue, and especially for international audiences, they'll kind of look at the Globe as kind of a one thing to tick off on their bucket list. Whereas, you know, we've got a lot of people that will come and see a lot of the theatre that we'll do, and we've got like a lot of loyal Shakespeare fans that will kind of come. But we do tend to see that 70% of our annual visitors generally are first timers. So for me, it's like really about how can we figure out exactly what it is that they want and how can we get them to return and really just to repeat that behaviour. So if they've come to a show and they spent £5 on a ticket, how can I just get them to spend £5 on a ticket again and just repeat that behaviour before we start talking to them about like longer term prospecting or becoming a member or donations and things like that? And how do we kind of balance people that are living locally to us in London versus those that are in the UK but a little bit further afield against those that are coming from America and maybe, you know, will only come and visit us once every 3 years, and how do we balance that messaging to them? So one thing I'm really focused on is like with our pre-visits, just really sort of building the world of what it is that we're offering, because a lot of time if people are booking for the first time, that email is going to be the first interaction and the first kind of feel that they get from us, and that's really where we can start building that foundation to build the world, what that experience will be, and to really try and get them to want to come back as well. Or for example, our email newsletters really help build the awareness of what's happening, what the news is, you know, what it is we're actively working on, and that for us will be like a little bit less of a sales piece and a bit more of a conversation. So we kind of like want to break down those barriers, especially where we're dealing with Shakespeare, we've got a lot of people that either kind of had experiences at school with Shakespeare, whether that was good or bad. So it's trying to overcome those barriers and make it a bit more welcoming and accessible for everybody. And then kind of thinking about how we pivot that with having sales at like really strategic times. So whether that's our big on sales, like whether it's a payday email at the end of the month, kind of like being a bit more salesy and pushing things there, versus those other sort of like campaign points, whether it's like post pest for a show or last chance for like booking on an educational webinar. So for me, it's kind of really looking at that journey from people that have never booked but might be subscribed to us. We do have a part of those people, people that are coming for the first time, maybe people that are coming for a second time. And then how do we speak to those? Because, for example, if you've been to us many times before, we may not need to tell you in a pre-visit that we've got a bar or come to the shop. You probably know that already. So how can we kind of tailor that experience depending on where you're from and what the kind of thing is that you're looking to do? So yeah, lots to cover, but that's kind of what I'm focused on at the moment.
Amazing, thank you. That's such a great kind of like whistle stop tour. And I think it's really interesting to hear, the Globe is such an iconic institution, and to hear how you navigate that, and the different audiences that you serve and how you adapt your email marketing to kind of serve those relationships. I think is really interesting. So thank you so much, and I'm really excited for us to kind of get a bit more into this as we go. Jacqueline, I will ask you next. Obviously, I know Digital Culture Network, you work in a different way, so answer, I guess, in the best way that you can, how you're telling people to approach email at the moment.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that, and so the way the team is divided at the Digital Culture Network is they're a team of 13 so-called tech champions, and we're all given a specialism, and my specialism is email marketing. And so I'm talking to the sector. What's great is it's a window on what's happening in the sector, what people are struggling with, what people find more challenging, what what their focus is at that moment in time. And so we could be talking about, quite major projects, sort of strategy, changing of, email service provider and ticketing systems, right through to something quite granular, which might be, I can't get engagement on these particular emails. How do I force that and kind of improve that response? I was thinking about for my own responsibility in terms of how I feed into the Digital Culture Network emails that we talk to the sector, and anybody who's signed up to our newsletter will know that that is the key tool for us to talk to the creative and cultural sector. And the fundamentals of email stay the same, right place, right time, right content. So, those things always underpin any of your email. And right person is kind of, I always start with the right person. Are you talking to the right person? Are you talking to them about what they really will resonate for them? And that's key for us effectively a business to business setting where we're talking to the sector. It's as important, obviously, as Jessica and Natalie's email strategy. The other thing is the challenges, like key challenges all the time, data decay. Those people who are in America, how could you engage them? Have you identified them? Segmentation, how could you connect with them? Is there something they can still interact with? But it has to be, it's that, segmentation and personalization, those two bits of the equation that are so difficult to pin down. And because of data decay, of course, you're looking to, okay, list hygiene is really important. So, a lot of people come to me about, I haven't got an engagement, but when was the last time you actually audited your list and looked at who's sitting on there, who's been sitting on there, hasn't opened, hasn't clicked for, quite a considerable time. And what does that look like? So we've been using at the Digital Culture Network, we've been looking at, okay, because we offer a free service and it's unlimited, you can talk to a tech champion at any time. We are looking for retention, we're looking for engagement, but we're also looking for growth. So those things, I think, as I say, they're kind of universal challenges. So we used our insight to kind of work out people were more engaged with our unique offer, what we offer. So that could be our webinars, any changes in the sector, our podcasts, our articles, any free resources. But so what we did is we changed from talking about the sector generally, leading with that in our emails, to actually focusing in on what we offer, because we found that through our evaluation of response rates, that really resonated, and that was what most people signed up for. We still do a sector, reflection of the sector, but it comes further down, it's briefer, it's shorter. So just using, in a very small way, just using data that we have of engagement to inform how we kind of position ourselves and what content we use. And again, that's a principle across the board, isn't it? That's one of those things that people, it's just having the time to do that evaluation. That's what I find. People are so time poor in the sector. They often don't have that chance to step back and reflect. There's we can talk about a couple of key changes that we've made, but just in terms of strategy, we're also auditing our touch points just to avoid that really common problem of the leaky bucket. So people come into contact with you, but you don't capture their contact data at that, or their permission to contact at that time. What can you do? You'd really like to speak to them. Maybe GDPR is holding you back. There's been that latest Data Usage Amendment Act. So a lot of people have got in touch with me about that. How does that affect the sector? And we did reflect on that in our recent newsletter. So do get in touch. But so that's all about the use of the soft opt-in versus explicit consent, and how you can use those sort of tactically. Sorry, I may have gone off topic a bit, but those universal issues and how we approach it's that strategy is universal, I think. I don't know whether Natalie would agree, but and Jessica would agree, but that's what I generally find.
Thank you. And we've had a quick question from Sam, and I want to make sure we answer it in case there's anybody else who's not sure. Just very quickly, would you be able to explain what you mean by data decay and list hygiene?
Of course. Sorry. So data decay is where the contacts, they go out of date, they become your lapsed or inactive contacts over time. That is a bit like food, it just goes off. And you will have some people who stay with you through thick and thin, but there will also be, the older the data, generally the less responsive. So you have to keep an eye on that, and that's the list hygiene is part of that, looking at who are your inactives, who are the worst, I call them offenders, but who are the worst offenders on your contact list, so that you can. And then there's some really nice reactivation campaigns that you can run, or you can just simply say, we're not going to email you again. A very, very straightforward one. We're not going to email it unless you let us know that we've got it wrong. We know inboxes, it's really nice, light touch way of managing basically your contact list. So you're not paying for contacts who never actually open or click your emails and haven't done so for a considerable time.
Fab, thank you. Already I'm like making mental notes of what we can do with HDK's webinar mailing list. So this is great. Also, we've had some questions in already, which is amazing. So just to let everybody know, please keep them coming. We will come to you. We'll try and answer as many as we can at the end of the session. But for now, Natalie, it'd be great to hear from you what purpose email serves for Caston, kind of an overview of your current strategy.
Yeah, so email's probably one of our main sort of marketing tools. We're a receiving house venue. We've got quite a local audience. So for us, sort of the main thing is increasing frequency of attendance and, like the other guys have said, building loyalty. We've got a really varied programme with lots of sort of one-nighters. We've got tributes, we've got family events, we've got participation work, we've got a youth theatre. So there's lots of different people that we need to talk to sort of all the time, really, about the different things. So we worked with a consultancy company a couple of years ago, and we've got this sort of big email sort of matrix spreadsheet. So at the start of every season, when shows go on sale, we map out all the emails that we want to send, when we want to send them, and just try and be mindful that we're not oversaturating audiences, because it'd be the amount of shows that we've got, it would be really easy to sort of be emailing almost everybody every day about something. So we try and sort of make it that most campaigns get like 3 solus emails, sort of 8 to 12 weeks out, so 4 to 6 weeks out, and then just before at 2 weeks out. We try and combine where we can, because like I say, we've got so many sort of one-nighters and things. It's, well, can we put those together and sort of based on booking behaviour and interests and things. And then we've sort of, when shows go on sale as well, we try and build like a bit of a re-engagement campaign as well. Like Jacqueline touched on, sort of the lapsed and stale, we call them, sort of bookers that we try and sort of send offers and things out. And sort of to new bookers, we've got those things that are always going out that we might send an offer after somebody's first visit, just to sort of get them to come back. If we can get them back, all the data says that they're then going to become more of a loyal audience, and they then might take a risk on something else. Yeah, so for us it is just a massive sort of loyalty thing, as well as the obvious sort of getting bums on seats as well, because we have got tickets to sell. That's sort of the main thing we use it for.
Amazing, thank you. It's so interesting to hear how each organization, of course, has their own complexities and goals that they're using email for. At the same time as there being, some, as Jacqueline was saying, like best practice and standard learnings that we can all kind of take from it. So thank you all for sharing. So the next discussion point, and I want to start with Jacqueline for this one, is what changes are you seeing in how audiences engage with emails, and how are you adapting to them?
So I think it's that just the inbox is so busy, and Natalie touched on one of the hardest things, which is not making the email work too hard. With the temptation is, if you've got a lot to talk about, put it all in the one email and try and tell them as much as possible. And I think what I've seen is people are coming away a little bit from that. They're trying to, not too many solus emails, although they do work. It's just the frequency is the frequency of emails, i.e. too frequent, is the most common reason for people unsubscribing. It's the most common reason that they cite, is you just, feeling bombarded. And that might not be even your organization. It might just be, email, our inboxes are busy, and people have understood the value of email to talk to your sort of customer base. So just working out, if you can, that's where segmentation or personalization might come in. I'm really interested in there's some email service providers are offering a sort of personalized time sending option, where you can use the data that we have, that email service providers collect at the time of sending, and if they can work out a pattern, they'll send the email subject to that individual person's pattern and or habits. And that might be really interesting. I think that might be a new development that really might make a difference, mightn't it? I think for better cut through, so apart from segmentation, I've had some really nice examples that I'm like a magnet. I try and collect, bits of best practice that I see or receive, and it's only a small amount, obviously, of the good work that is out there. One that I really liked is because I'm based in Bristol, was the Bristol Watershed. There's two things they're doing. One is that at the point of sign up to the newsletter, they ask people, do you want to hear from us weekly or monthly? And there's some other options, but those two I think are quite key, because it kind of sets the pace and that it's the person setting the pace of that communication, and that feels really personalized. Feels, you're connecting with people in the way they want to hear from you. And the other thing that they did was they did a trade. So they're principally, Bristol Watershed are a cinema, and they although they have a very interesting varied program apart from the cinema, but the cinema email was the one I came across, and it was asking people to rate trailers. And so suddenly you get this dialogue where that you maybe don't have with email. Email was often sort of pushing out information, but you don't necessarily get that interaction. But they're actually, and of course it serves, what I loved about it was it's so strategically aligned. So yes, of course, you want people to watch your the trailers because that's, you know, your cinema output. But it's also a bit, it's strategically aligned, but it's also fun. And you know, and if we can find more things like that. And there was one other example that I really liked was, and I signed up to Greenpeace, and they do in their welcome automation, which is the highest scoring email generally because it's sent at the right time. You know, it's really personalized. It's in the honeymoon period when people are most engaged with their organization or whoever they've, you know, signed up with. And they use the welcome to as a series of emails, and one of them is, we know, you know, everything about the environment is important to you, but, you know, could you tell us a bit more about which ones are most important, which of these issues are most important to you? And then they kind of list, you know, waste, plastic waste, biodiversity, climate change, and so on. And you give them a little bit more information about what's important to you, but it doesn't restrict how you speak to you. It just informs. And so it gives you, as an organization, it's great because it gives you that extra insight. I could go on, but I won't, Phoebe, because do you feel that's answered the question that
Yeah,
you?
really, really helpful. And I think some really kind of great practical examples of, I think we all know that personalization is important. But I think particularly I know that without a doubt, there will be some people here who are in like one person marketing teams who will kind of know, I need to personalize, but I don't really know. I don't have like the resource or the structure in place to kind of go in depth with that. I think there's some really kind of like straightforward, practical ways that you can kind of practice that when it comes to frequency and topics that people are interested in as well. So that's really helpful. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
Natalie, I want to ask you next, what changes you're seeing in how your audiences are engaging with email?
I think it's not really a case of one size fits all. Like I said, because we've got such a varied program, I think different audiences respond to different things because they've got the different booking behaviours. And it's sort of responding to those, and that sort of just comes with time, just sort of a bit of trial and error. So, for example, we've noticed that family audiences have started booking a lot later. So, especially when it comes to like school holiday activities, like they're not thinking about October half term till at least September when they've gone back to school. So there's no point sending sort of loads of soulless emails right on early in the campaign when the show's just gone on sale, because although they're going to read them and look at them, they're not even thinking about making those plans. So you're not going to see that the booking yet. So it'd be really easy to sort of look at your ROI and think, well, they're looking, we're getting the open rate, we've got the click-through rate, but why are they not booking? Because it's just not their behaviour to book. So I think we've sort of adapted where we've said, right, well, actually, rather than sending things right at the start of the campaign, we might put something out really general on a newsletter about to our family audiences to say, look, we've got these things coming. We know you're not booking yet, but we just want you to know about them. And then leave it until much later in the campaign when we will see that sort of return on investment. Yeah, and then sort of just keeping that in mind with all the different things that we do, that it is the behaviour of the audience, not the sort of what you're saying that might not necessarily be that's landing. It's that they're not ready to book.
Yeah, I think that's a really helpful shift to make, to kind of, go from rather than, I guess, if you're constantly adapting your approach to how audiences are reacting, I think it is really important, obviously, if there are patterns that emerge, but actually, as you said, maybe it's more a pattern with that particular segment of your audience, and how can you adapt your approach based on that. Jessica, how about yourself? What changes are you seeing?
Yeah, a lot of the same kind of things, really. Like we're definitely noticing at the Globe that for some bookers, kind of them, the first time that they see something, they might open an email and click an email. When they actually purchase that product, like the gap is becoming wider and wider. And like interestingly, one thing that I've seen recently is that actually people are kind of going back to that initial email. So I would just like we've kind of had to adapt looking at our results sometimes and looking at it at a longer period later on, because it might be that we've sent an email out 3 weeks ago, but sometimes we'll get a random spike in sales and we're like, nothing actually happened. Where's that come from? And then we'll look and actually it's just people going back to that email because maybe it's that it got nearer to payday, or like Natalie said, we're seeing a lot of the time looking at our family audiences, for example, it is that pattern of the holidays. So exactly, and where we kind of struggle, where there's so many things to say and talk about all the time, it's just being a bit more strategic about, okay, so for families, like Natalie was saying, let's not send it all the time. We just know that the next holiday is coming up, so let's give enough time, sort of a couple of weeks before that holiday, and then like follow up again for those last minute bookers, and kind of adapting to that behavior that way, and kind of seeing what people's needs are in that way as well. And another big thing for us as well is just that any assumptions that we had internally, they're just not working. So, where we have a lot of people come for the first time, previously people probably would have been like, oh, okay, they came to see this family show, like maybe they're really into family things, but it might just be that actually they had family visiting at that time with children, so that's why they booked that family show, and actually they're more into historical things, or they're like really into research. So I think us really trying to narrow down and using different avenues and ways to sort of build that customer profile in terms of like what are they actually interacting with. And we have got some new tools. We're in the process of moving email platforms at the moment, and it's really interesting. In our new platform, we are kind of able to see sort of what days are the best for landing emails and like what time. So that's really helping us as well. Like for us, like Wednesdays and Thursdays tend to be the best day. The weekends are dead, and kind of like just those early sort of times, like 10 a.m. and then maybe sort of like a 3 p.m. and like 2 p.m. in the afternoon are like really high for us. So again, kind of like trying to adapt that way, so we're meeting them where they are. And I think finally as well, just I think a lot of our audiences, like in terms of like want that personalization, but also want that interaction as well. And I think where we've been really playful recently in like bits of copy, whether it was over Christmas or New Year, or like the end of last year, we did like a bit of a like globe wrapped and kind of like leaned into the Spotify rap. Like people were really loving it, where we're a little bit more playful and not so serious with different things. And I think we're really leaning into now, what's the different tone for those different audiences? What do we want to see? And then in that way, how can we kind of stand out in the inbox as well? Because, like the others have said, there's so much you're competing with. And one thing we've had to lean on is trying to be a bit more short and punchier, and just not letting the email do all the work. Like really the main thing for me is I'm like, we need to just drive to the website. That's the whole point, is to like hook them and get them onto the website. And hopefully that then will do the less of it, rather than and I, everyone will know how this feels. You get pressure from all the different teams, and you end up, people want to write War and Peace in that email, and like everything has to be in there, otherwise they're not going to book. But actually, I've definitely found it's the opposite. If you can kind of like put different bits of content in there, or just something that's going to hook them and get them across a little bit of a different way. And sometimes it might not even be content that we've made. Like if our press team have done a really good job, and someone's done a BBC interview, or we've got this article going out here, sharing those extra bits as well just really kind of like helps to build that world, sorry. So yeah, we're just trying to like adapt a little bit more in that way as well.
Thank you so much. And because you mentioned moving platforms, we've also had a question from Maya. Can I just very quickly ask each of you which platforms you're using for email marketing? I know, let's start with Jessica, since you just mentioned it.
Yeah, sure. So we were on Wordfly. We have still got Wordfly running because we're in the process of moving across, but we're now working with a company called Acoustic. So we're working with them on an integration for our CRM platform. But yeah, we're in the process of moving across.
Fab, thank you. Natalie, how about you?
So we use Dot Digital. I just want to still call it Dot Mailer, I'm sorry. And that interacts with Spectrix, our booking system.
Lovely. And Jacqueline, how about you?
We use Click Dimensions at the Arts Council.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, wonderful. And our final discussion point, and we've had so many questions in, so I'm really excited to kind of dive into these next. But before we do so, Natalie, I'll start with you this time. What is an email campaign that performed well for you and one that didn't? And what did you learn from each of them?
So when we do our seasonal sales, we segment based on booking behaviour and sort of frequency of attendance. So we created all these ridiculous segments, sort of people that have been 10 plus times, 9 to 3, once, first timers, never booked. And we sort of realised, it sounds really stupid saying it out loud, but we have a 2-week members pre-sale period, and we were sending emails to sort of lapsed and stale bookers. For us, they're people that haven't been between 18 months and 3 years. We were sending them emails in the 2-week early booking period, to try and get them to re-engage and to join as members. And then we sort of looked at it and we went, well, none of these are booking. Why are they not booking? And it sounds really stupid saying it out loud now, but it's because they can't book because they're not members yet. And sort of the message, we were like, you need to join and become a member and book all these shows. And it was like, well, they can't, and they haven't been for some of them 3 years. So they're not going to book. They don't want to become a member because they've not been for 3 years. They don't see the benefit of it. And it wasn't until we sort of looked at the ROI afterwards and we went, oh, of course, that's why they're not booking, and it's not worth sending those emails out. And it was like, it's so obvious after the fact, but when we were in the middle of it, it was like couldn't see the wood for the trees. So we sort of know, right, well, we'll leave that until after the general on sale, and then we'll start sort of getting those to just get them back. We don't need them to be members. We just need them to book again and re-engage and remind them that we're here. So that was sort of the learning there, was just sort of to wait. And then sort of on the flip side of that, it was the sort of the members comms, that it was getting those touch points in sort of before the members on sale, talking to the members, look, we've got these shows going on sale. Don't forget, you can book for 2 weeks. You've got this great 2-week early booking period. And then sort of the people that might become members, giving them plenty of touch points as well to remind them to join as a member, and that it's time to be, time to look at, if you're going to be a member, now is the time so that you can book and you can enjoy those benefits. And so we set up ROI reports through Spectrix daily, so we sort of can track that, and we can look right through the 2-week campaign, right, that was the day we sent that email, that was where we got that spike, and we can really track that back.
Amazing, thank you. These learnings are always like, when you're reflecting on it, you're like, well, of course. And then, but when you're in the thick of it, it's, that's why it's really important to kind of, learn from the work we do and experiment. And I think something that, an attitude that feels like it's increasing across digital as a whole is that it's okay to experiment, it's okay to get things wrong. Because each time, something like that happens, you learn and improve. Which is why we kind of wanted to ask this question. Jacqueline, how about yourself? Could you give an example of one that worked, one that didn't, and what you learned from each of them?
So yes, we offer at the Digital Culture Network, we offer lots of audits or health checks, a website health check, email marketing health check, and we offered this one didn't go so well, only because, well, it went really well, but we didn't then. The tech champion then didn't have the capacity, so people had to wait a long time. So it was a search engine optimization audit, and we publicized it, but because we publicized it to the whole of our list, we couldn't actually accommodate the response. So just that was one that went well, so we learned from that. One that we're testing at the moment is so we do a pre-Christmas audit for e-commerce, and just getting that timing right, because for all of us, August feels way too early, for Christmas. But in the when in the shop world, actually it's August, September is actually the time when you're thinking about your Christmas campaigns. So just getting the timing of that email right. So we've been testing different timings and also reminders and working out that side of things. For testing, I do suggest. So I know with email, a lot of people talk about A/B testing in terms of subject lines. I never managed to get any noticeable difference there. Perhaps because I didn't want to do a poor subject line, to get that distinction between A and B and get better results for one or the other. But what I recommend is kind of developing a testing strategy and using all that information. Natalie, obviously, she stepped back, looked at the information, using the insight. That's what we've got. But then also testing and going forwards, well, who are the best optimal segments for membership, and going through that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. And finally on this one, Jessica, it would be great to hear your examples.
Yeah, sure. So, in terms of campaign not going very well, this is like one close to my heart. We've got a show that's on at the moment, it's just about to end, called Deep Azure, which was written by Chadwick Boseman of Black Panther fame. So we were really excited when we knew we were going to be putting this show on. It's the first time it had kind of been shown. I think he'd done like rehearsed readings of it way back in the day before Black Panther, and it had never really been properly shown, especially outside of America. So we were really excited to get this, and it's not often at the Globe that we have like, star casting or big names affiliated with our work. So I think we all just really assumed that, everyone's going to see Chadwick Boseman's name. They're going to want to book it immediately. And that actually that the name was just going to kind of do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. But that definitely proved not to be true, especially, a lot of our emails go out to our existing audiences. So we kind of like went big and bold with like Chadwick's face and was like, it's Chadwick Boseman, everybody. And then it was kind of like crickets, and no one's booking. And I think immediately we were all panicking, especially because emails are a really big driver for sales amongst our existing audiences. And we were just seeing it just really wasn't translating in the way that we thought it would be. So we really quickly realized that we had to just sort of pivot the conversation and just really dive into what the connection of the show is, and really like the why and the how this came to us in the first place, and like what the connection to Shakespeare was, like, why we've chosen to put this on, and why it's important. We did kind of like start to see a bit of a creep in sales, but nowhere near what we normally expect to see for our campaigns. And actually, we kind of would have responses from people that were like, oh, like the Globe's doing something that isn't Shakespeare, which is ironic. We kind of have this problem where, interestingly, like we've always done new work, and like generally in a lot of seasons we'll have like either a new write or something that's different from Shakespeare. But even for our existing audiences, and even some that are really engaged, it seems to be like new news to them every time we announce that we're doing new writing. So, it's constantly a new discovery for them. We can't always get that message through. So we kind of just had to realize that actually in this case, maybe that's okay. And actually, as exciting as this show is, it's mainly to kind of like for the new audiences and developing new audiences, and that actually we weren't going to be able to rely on our existing audiences booking those seats and and pushing those sales. And that was just kind of something that we had to accept with this one. I think a lot of the time we can kind of, as marketers, think we can rely on that star casting, or sometimes I'll get jealous because I'll see the other theatres and I'm like, oh my God, look who they've got in, they're gonna, then they're selling out from that. But actually that's not the case. Like it kind of really taught us that for us, we've always talked about that the venue itself is the star of like a lot of the shows that we do, or it's the works of Shakespeare as the star. And actually, it just really was true for us. Like having a recognized icon just didn't get the traction with our existing audience that Shakespeare does. But actually, obviously, it did for lots of new audiences, and it's been phenomenal for us for audience development. But for existing audiences, it just really has shown me that like we need to start that conversation way earlier, and we really have to tie it back into Shakespeare, like the reason that why we have that in there, just to kind of build that traction and interest. And that maybe for our existing audiences for particular products like that, it's going to be more of a conversation piece and like kind of a more of like a thought piece rather than driving lots of those sales. So lots of big learnings, but hopefully it just means for any future new writing we've got coming in, that'll be really good for us. And then in terms of one that went really well is we launched a newsletter for our access patrons and our access scheme, just because we kind of realized that although we have an access scheme, like we weren't really talking to anybody about any of the access provisions that we had, or like what we were offering. And we kind of thought actually we're really missing a trick there, and we need to be talking to them and engaging them a lot more, especially while we're trying to like think about retention and getting people to come back and visit in. So we launched an access newsletter last year, and at the time I think we had like just under 8,000 people signed up to our access scheme, and only 17% of those people were even subscribed to emails in the first place. So most of them just weren't getting anything. So we worked really hard on our templates, and like it really kind of made us really think about how we're making our emails accessible, like down to what colors are we using, like how big is the text, making sure we haven't got words and pictures, is that alt text on point, all of those different things. And we sent the first version out to everybody that was on the access scheme, just advising that we're launching, and that we're going to do this new newsletter. It's going to go out quarterly, but if you want to receive future editions, you're going to need to subscribe. And then within 24 24 hours, we had like a flurry of emails back, and I like panicked immediately. I feel like it's the worst nightmare if you send something out and suddenly people are personally emailing you. But actually, it was like really, really lovely personal responses from people, just saying, this was so fabulous, and it was like great to meet the team, and like we love to see that you're prioritizing access, and we feel a lot more closer to the globe, and it feels a lot more human, which was like amazing to hear. Like the fact that people had actually not just read the email and engaged with it, but then taken the time to actually respond off the back of it. Like it really was phenomenal. And people even coming back with like suggestions of like things that they'd love to see or what they want to find out more about, which kind of really helped drive what that content was and helped us sort of like build again what it is that they want to hear from us. And then within 2 weeks of sending that email out, the first version of it out, we saw like a 60% increase in people on the access scheme signing up to email. So it was a huge jump, people realizing that we actually have that, which was just phenomenal for us to see. It's one of those like pinch me moments because it doesn't happen often. You check the data 4 times and you're like, am I sure before I tell anyone this has happened? But it's really, really nice to see. And another like secondary uptick, which we hadn't really thought about, but as well as signing up to the access scheme, we also just sort of have access as a general interest that you can sign up to. And we saw a huge uptick just where people were saying, I'm going to tell my friends about this, or like, other people in the community about this. And like, we just saw a massive surge in people signing up just to hear about our access provision that weren't in the access scheme, which kind of, before we would just think that anyone that wanted to hear about that was in the access scheme. So it really kind of opened up to the fact that that's not always the case. So like up to date now, that's kind of like grown 70% up from where we started of people just being, interested in that general interest. And we've kind of like stuck to going out quarterly. So it's not even a newsletter now that goes out all the time. So at this point, we've only sent about 4 out, but we've seen like a 25% increase in access scheme membership in general to date now, I think just with that awareness. And at the moment, like email's been the only place that we've really spoken about the access scheme and our access offering outside of like, obviously we've got like an access page on our website. So it's just also then pushed a real uptake into like where we've got access performances. So whether it's the caption performances, we're seeing way more uptake in cases of like people booking caption tablets or like wanting to come to our relaxed performances and things like that. So yeah, it really has been really expansive for us. So I think with that, we kind of really lent into wanting to have it a bit more of a news piece and a bit more of a conversational piece, but actually on the side of that, it kind of really has driven sales for us for those access provisions. And it means that we've actually expanded the program in terms of what we're offering and what we're doing. So yeah, phenomenal numbers. So it just goes to show sometimes we focus so hard on who we are talking to and how we're talking to them, but then actually there's other streams or strands of audiences that we've completely forgotten about that can then do huge numbers for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I was so interested to hear those insights about Deep Azure because I came to see it, loved it, and I think it's really interesting because I think I came because I was familiar with obviously Chadwick Boseman. I was also familiar with the director. And I'm just like really immersed in the theatre world. So it's really interesting to kind of understand, like which audience that I would kind of fall into. So thank you very much. Very, very insightful. Okay, so we are going to move on to some attendee questions. And we've had quite a few, so thank you everybody. It's always really exciting when we get this kind of engagement. What I'm going to do, in the interest of time, because I'm conscious we don't have a huge amount left, is ask that we keep answers to these questions to 1 or 2 sentences, which I know is a challenge. Obviously, it's absolutely fine if you go over, but I just want to make sure we get to as many as possible. So I think the first question that I'm actually going to direct specifically to Jacqueline, because of the nature of the question, is Ellie asked, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, as a solo marketing team, they've only got time for a monthly newsletter. So what would you say that they should prioritize to start improving their email strategy without getting overwhelmed?
So, I mean, well, they first of all they could get in touch, and we could look at it in more detail. So that that's the service that we offer as the Digital Culture Network. But I would lean into the fact that everything's tracked. So if you have time to step back and look at your results, that will inform your approach. And that's I mean, it's basic. So they might be already doing that. So sorry, Ellie, if you're already doing that, but that would be definitely a a kind of first step, wouldn't it? And see what insight you can glean.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Another question, and I'm kind of going to combine two we've had from Catherine and Helen, is and Natalie, I'm going to ask this of you, if that's okay. How do you at Cast measure the success of your emails? And how do you balance like making content that's engaging and making content that sells tickets?
So we set up a daily ROI report for all our comms. So we just have that automatically coming. So we've always got that data coming in. And then, like I said, we've got a big matrix spreadsheet that sort of, when we have 5-10 minutes, we try and set some time aside to go through and actually look at all the click-throughs and the return on investment and how many people have booked and how many tickets and what that was worth. So I'd sort of really recommend sort of setting something up that can do that for you. So you've always got that data there so that when you do get time, you've got that info. And then what was the other part of the question? Sorry.
Kind of like how do you balance engagement and how you prioritize that with ticket sales? Like how important is email engagement versus ROI, or is it all focused on ROI for you?
I think for us it is a lot of sort of ROI because we do just have such a massive churn of shows. But it is based on sort of the behaviour and like I touched on briefly before, it's not oversaturating your audiences and making sure that you are sending them things that they are going to be interested in. Because otherwise they're just going to get fed up and they are going to then drop off your mailing list. So it's sort of sending things that are just relevant to them, and sometimes that is just trial and error and learning those audience behaviours.
Yeah. And sorry, Sam, ROI is return on investment. So, it's about what, sales you get as a result of the activity that you're doing. Okay, thank you so much, Natalie. And this question feels relevant to you, Jessica, just because of some of the things that you've shared about how you approach your different audiences at the Globe. Mayuk asked, do we need emails to be in a different tone of voice for each of our audiences, like generationally, like it particularly? Or do you have a very kind of like, a very clear Globe tone of voice and you kind of apply that to everyone?
Yeah, so I would say that again, just being careful like with assumptions and stuff. Like for us, we definitely don't think of it in terms of like age or like demographics, just because you can't assume. Like you just don't know exactly how somebody wants to be spoken to. And it's something that we're kind of working on at the moment. But the strategy that I'm kind of leading for it is to generally have sort of a general Globe voice, like what is it we're saying, how do we talk about things, but then adapting that to certain audiences. So for example, like our teacher bulletin goes out to just teachers, and that might be a little bit more long form because realistically they are, rather than just quickly on their phone, a lot of them are reading it in their classrooms on a computer, and they kind of like want all of that information there. Or it's a conversation that we're having, we're thinking about sort of like launching an alumni network and sort of like research newsletter, and that's a conversation we're having at the moment is how academic do we go, but then we just have to think about what that audience is, and sometimes you shouldn't be afraid to shy away from it. Like it might be that we end up with a really academic newsletter, and that's fine because the type of people that it's going to are very academic and they're doing research and they're doctors in the field. So I think it's just really thinking about one, what is the end goal of what it is that you're writing, and just generally speaking, who is that person? But you don't want it to feel too far out of like generally what the Globe is, but not being afraid as well, even within that sort of audience stream. For different emails, you can mix it up. So, for example, like I said previously, like when it was Christmas and New Year, we got a lot more playful because everyone's relaxed. People aren't, at home. You aren't working. We can be a little bit more playful there. Whereas, for example, like September, everyone's back to school, back to work. It's that kind of mentality. So we'll kind of like strip it back and maybe be a bit more streamlined. So I think just try to go with your gut, really. I think a lot of the time that will kind of like lead you to what it is that you would want to read or how to write it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We've also had a few questions about Substack, and it's not the first time it's come up in our chat recently. Jacqueline, I wonder if you have any insights on this. Are people using it more? Is it worth considering?
So I think the jury's out on Substack. There are something it's quite difficult to get a sense of whether some a few people are using it, but there were some concerns when I spoke to our e-commerce tech champion, Catherine. We both came to the conclusion that it's preferable, if you can afford it, to have your own email service provider. And that a lot of people could get in touch using MailChimp. Digital's already been mentioned. There's a new one on the block, is EcoSend. It is budget wise, it's more pricey, but they are trying to offer a discount to our sector. And they because they have sustainability as their driving aim and goal. Otherwise, Campaign Monitor. There's a few on our platform. I'll post the platform, and they're the ones that offer discounts to the sector that we know of. If anybody knows of any others, please do let me know. But yes, I think we came to the conclusion, preferable to have your own email service provider rather than use Substack.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Okay, so I think we will have to bring the questions to a close here, just so that we can make sure that we share everything that we need to with everybody who's attended today. Thank you so much, as always, everybody who attended, for your amazing engagement throughout. It's always just so rewarding and exciting to see that these panel discussions aren't just a conversation between us and our wonderful guests, but also with everybody who's here today. We want to make sure that they're always serving you in the best possible way. So thank you very much. A few little housekeeping bits. We have some really exciting topics coming up in our webinars. May, we're going to be looking at different AI tools for your website. In June, we're going to be looking at how to spend digital ad budget for arts audiences. That'll be another panel discussion. And in July, we're going to be looking at how to balance your website's impact and sustainability. So, we've got webinars planned up until the end of the year. So please feel free to explore, sign up. We'd love to see you at as many as you'd like to come to. There is no limit. And we also have a monthly newsletter that we send. The link is also in the chat. Please sign up for further insights in an email digest. But otherwise, I just wanted to thank you all. A special thanks to our panelists for today, Jacqueline, Jessica, and Natalie. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you. And yeah, if you want to say a kind of final sign off, then please feel free.
So the only thing was, if anybody still has any questions that haven't been answered today, that is the purpose of the Digital Culture Network. So please do get in touch. And Phoebe, perhaps you'd include our contact details in the email that you circulate, just in case.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, same for me. Just to say, if there's any questions we weren't able to get to, happy for my email to be shared. Feel free to drop me a line. It's always as much as we can kind of get insight from each other. It's always really helpful. So yeah, always open to that.
Amazing. We will make sure to
please put my email in.
Sorry, say that again, Natalie.
Please put my email in the email, and I'm very happy to sort of chat with anybody else. I'd love to sort of connect with other venues.
Fabulous. I will do. Thank you so much for all being so generous with your time and your availability. Otherwise, we will sign off. Thank you so much, and I hope you all got as much as we did from this.